If we could talk to the animals, learn all their languages, maybe take an animal degree. If I conferred with our furry friends, man to animal, think of the amazing repartee. If I could walk with the animals, talk with the animals, grunt and squeak and squawk with the animals, and they could talk to me.
Hello and welcome to Pet Watch, a monthly program about the Williamson County Animal Center. Yes, that is our new name. We introduced it last month on this show. We're happy to say that we've shortened our name a little bit. We've got a new logo, which you will see during this program. And I have a guest today who's one of our volunteers, Karen Menzyk. Hi, Karen.
Hi, Debbie.
We're glad to have you here today. So many people love to come and volunteer at our shelter, and you're a face that we see quite a bit. How did you get started volunteering with the Williamson County Animal Shelter in whatever incarnation it was when you came aboard?
I'm starting my 17th year, and my husband and I retired down here, and I've always loved animals, so it seemed like a perfect fit to start volunteering there.
Wow, 17 years. Now, it was a little different. I'm
Yes,
sure
it was.
17 years ago it was smaller and maybe not have as many programs. What did you start out doing the first time you volunteered at the shelter?
I helped them organize their files, and then gradually I started helping with the education programs, and then I began primarily doing the rescue work and the pet finder site.
Okay, so you kind of branched out. A lot of people tend to think that to volunteer at the shelter, you walk dogs. It's quite a bit more than that. There are many, many jobs a volunteer can do. I've seen you do many things at the shelter. Do you have pets at home?
Yes, we have a bearded collie named Tara, and she's 5 years old.
Uh-huh. So are dogs your primary interest?
Yes, that and African wildlife and the wild dogs such as wolves and coyotes.
Wow, okay. And you were transplanted here from?
Michigan.
Michigan. Oh, a lot of people in the auto industry relocated here years ago, and we're glad you stayed.
Oh, we are too.
I think 17 years might be a record for a volunteer at the shelter. How has your volunteerism evolved? Now, what are you involved in now at the shelter when you come in to give your time?
Mainly, I walk the dogs, and for the pet finder site, we'll take their pictures, and I'll do kind of a meet and greet with them just to get to know them so I can write their biographies on Pet Finder. And the other volunteers have been great about sending pictures and information about the dogs too, so that we can present a full picture and make them more adoptable.
Yes, Pet Finder is a site that shelters can use and develop a list and a series of photographs of all the pets available for adoption. And our shelter uses it through our website, or you can go directly onto Pet Finder, can't you?
Yes.
Okay, so you're the secret behind how the pictures and the descriptions get on Pet Finder.
Yes, and we have a wonderful photographer who comes in and takes the cat pictures, and then the cat volunteers write fantastic biographies, because the cats, I think, are a little harder to pinpoint their personalities, and the insight that these volunteers share has really helped make the cats highly adoptable too.
I know it has. I've noticed that in the 2.5 years I've been there that, we used to describe a cat as a 4-year-old male tabby and give it a name. And now we have these intricate paragraphs of what the cat volunteers who are deeply involved on a daily basis have found out about their personalities. And that kind of leads me to the ASPCA system of classifying adoptable pets, which we as a shelter picked up about 1.5 years ago. It's called felinality and caninality. Now, have you been involved in either one of those programs?
Yes, I do the caninality evaluations.
Okay, so tell our viewers what it is. How do you evaluate a dog? What are some of the things that you do when you go in and you say, this is a new dog in adoption and we don't know much about it, so let me get it out of the kennel and let's go do a caninality test. So I think people would be interested to know how you do that.
It's a very well structured program, and you do a meet and greet with the dog and take it outside. Then you put it in a room at the shelter that has a camera in there to observe the dog for 4 minutes, and you're sitting in another room watching all this on a TV monitor, and you look at how active the dog is, if it sits by the door, if it might stand up on its legs to look on the counter, if it just circles the room, or if it maybe scratches on the door. because it misses you. And then you go in and do another meet and greet and just observe its behavior. You see how the dog likes toys, and then you get a treat and see how it responds to a food lure. And then there's several pages that you fill out based on what you've observed. And there's 3 different categories. There's purple, orange, and green. Purple are the more laid back dogs. Most of them fall in the orange category. It's kind of the intermediate activity. And then the very active dogs are green. And there are corresponding colors on their cages. And then in each of the colors, there's 3 different categories. We had a couch potato last week that's a perfect dog if you want a quiet dog that'll just sit at your feet and not want to go out for long walks and play. And we had a green a couple weeks ago that was a very active dog that would be great for someone that likes to hike or run or likes to be out in the yard a lot throwing the ball for the dog. And it's really fun to do that. And sometimes you think, oh, I'll bet this is an orange, and they'll surprise you, and it's a different one. So,
I love the couch potato. That's one of the purple
yes.
categories. Yeah, there's some subcategories in there, and then based on the responses of the dog to all these different tests, you sort of add things up at the end, and they end up in one column or the other.
Yes.
Okay. Now let's talk about how that works with the people that come in. When an adopter comes to the shelter, I think I want a dog. That's wide open territory right there. There are a lot of questions that one needs to ask about an adoption, in addition to what the living conditions are, how many other pets you have. There's this K9-ality has a corresponding test for the adopter.
Yes, they fill out an application form, and based on that, the volunteers and the staff can recommend dogs that they think would be a good fit. And that's one of the objectives of the Meet Your Match program, so that people can find the right animal and they won't maybe have to bring it back, and it'll suit their lifestyle as well. So if you have someone coming in saying, oh, I love to run every day, you'd point them most likely to a green dog.
Right.
So,
or if they say my mom's retired and she doesn't get around, doesn't walk well, can't walk long distances, you certainly don't want a very active dog
right.
that needs a lot of exercise. That wouldn't be fair to her or the dog. So you match her up with somebody in the purple category.
that would be perfect.
Right. That's a couch potato or a lap dog, as,
yes.
as the term goes, that wouldn't trip her up, wouldn't be running around tearing things up and messing up her apartment or her home. So it's a great way to tailor the animal to the person. And like you said, appearances can be deceiving.
That's
Everybody
true.
loves a puppy, but not everybody's ready for what taking a puppy involves. And we have that problem at the shelter from time to time when everybody thinks they want a puppy. And we say, really? Because they go pretty quickly if we have them.
They do.
And let's go in here and look at these guys. They're 1 to 12 years old, and they need a home too. And people don't realize that the older the dog, the more well-behaved it's going to be.
Yes.
Well, the K9-ality program and you doing that at the shelter is an invaluable help for us, because we have so many animals come in that the staff can't always evaluate all of them. So to have a volunteer step up and learn how to do the videotaping and how to do the scoring is just wonderful, and we appreciate you doing that for us.
Oh, it's a lot of fun too.
And we always have a dog ready to be evaluated.
That's right.
There's never a shortage, is there?
No.
Some of the other things you've been involved in your life is animal transports. Rescuing and transporting kind of go together.
Yes.
What is a transport program? To explain that to our viewers.
When a dog goes to a rescue group out of state, they have to get there, and there are a couple of transports we've worked with for many years. One is called All Paws and one is called Pets, and they'll pick up the dogs in the Nashville area and then drop them off on the East Coast. And it's remarkable when the trailer pulls in and they open it and you see all those dogs on their way to a second chance. It's touching every single time. But the most unique transports are what we call the leg-to-leg ones. It's volunteer drivers. And we recently sent a white German Shepherd dog to a shepherd rescue up in Wisconsin, and they did a leg-to-leg transport. It was 13 different drivers.
Oh my.
And they'll usually drive about an hour to 2 hours, and they hand the dog off, and it was really fun because they posted on email at each stop how the dog was doing, where they were going, and the dog went all the way up to Green Bay. So that was remarkable in one day.
It's kind of like tracking Santa on NORAD.
It is, that's right.
Like the German Shepherd is now entering Indiana territory. So did you work that out through through your working with that organization for years?
They have a transport coordinator, and this was the first time we'd worked with them, and she filled all 13 legs in 3 days, so that was remarkable.
Was it a dog from our shelter, or was it just from this area? It was from our shelter.
Yes.
Okay, because sometimes other organizations around the community, other rescue groups have different means of transporting than the shelter does. So anything to get a dog a home.
That's true.
We're happy to help rescue groups, and they're happy to help us.
Yes, they are.
So that is interesting, and I've read even about out west, there's a pilot who has a private plane, and he's retired from an airline, but he flies animals in his private plane over out west in the same kind of handoff situation you were talking about.
Isn't that amazing? I've heard of that too.
I know it. And truck drivers.
Yes.
There are truck drivers that transport animals. So if you're going down the highway and you see a dog in the cab of a truck, it may not be the truck driver's dog. It may be on the way to a new home. And we've told our viewers before, but I think you'll confirm this, that the southern states have an abundance of adoptable animals that need homes. And many northern states have a shortage.
Yes.
And that is why some animals end up going to the north through the programs you described, or the official rescue wagon program that we participate in at the shelter through PetSmart Charities.
Yes.
Yeah, we do a regular transport there. And they end up being adopted at much higher fees than we charge because of the shortage. There actually is a demand in some parts of the country for homeless pets, if you can imagine that. It'd be lovely to get to that point in our community someday, but we're doing what we can.
I think we're making good progress.
Do you really?
Yes, I really do.
Okay, good. Now, other rescue groups around the county, do you work with any of them?
Yes, we have some great local groups. There's ones I've worked with for years, Critter Cavalry, Proverbs 12:10, Big Fluffy Dog Rescue, Russell Rescue, SPCA of Tennessee, Snooty Giggles, Agape. Those are just a few of the ones that have pulled dogs from our shelter.
Now, Big Fluffy Dog, is that their specialty, big fluffy dogs?
Yes.
Is that a self-described?
They mainly take Great Pyrenees, but they've taken a black hound dog from us. So though their primary focus is on the big herding dogs, they'll diversify from time to time too.
And it is good to know that all these groups do exist, and when we do get a Great Pyrenees, and we can rest assured that Big Fluffy Dog has the connections and the expertise, maybe more than the shelter does, to find the exact right home for that dog, because that's a difficult dog to rehome.
Yes.
Because it is large, it does tend to herd, and it needs a certain amount of space and property and supervision. Yeah. When we think of rescue groups, I'm not sure people have a good conception of what it is. For instance, let's go back to one of the ones people are familiar with, such as Big Fluffy Dog. What is a rescue network like for that organization? I mean, they don't have a facility that they keep the animals in. Is it homes or volunteers, or how does that work?
They depend on foster homes, and then when the dogs transport to New England, they'll usually go into a foster home there until they can be evaluated and matched up with the right owner.
So a rescue group has people who volunteer to be in it. It has its own little network. And if a rescue group comes to our shelter and takes a dog, we basically have handed it over to them because we know who they are, we know their reputation, and we know the dog will get adopted eventually.
Yes.
And we haven't frees up another space in our building. But that dog will probably go to a network in somebody's home in Williamson County as a foster parent.
A lot of them actually do end up getting adopted here too through the rescues.
Right, some stay in the county.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's always cheaper, and these rescues are working as very small not-for-profits and on no budget at all. So there's a whole foster network in the county that people really don't know about that all of these rescue groups rely on. One person can't keep every Great Pyrenees that needs a home. They'd have to have a big farm. So these dogs depend on volunteers. Do you ever foster animals yourself?
No, we're a one-dog household.
You're a one dog, okay. I understand, but I have a friend that has quite a crew of foster animals at her house and has for years, and they just know how to do it. They know how to make the dogs interact well and take care of them, and it's just wonderful to know, isn't it, that all these groups are just sitting there waiting.
Yes.
And we have different breed specific. You mentioned Jack Russell. There's
Yes.
a Greyhound group, a Dachshund group, a Boston Terrier group. There all of these available in this immediate area. So that's good to know. Now tell me about what you believe is the best way for a person that's thinking about adopting a dog. What procedure should they go through?
I think it's great to come into the shelter and fill out the application and just tell us what kind of dog they're looking for, what their lifestyle is like, if they're active or what role the dog plays in their family, and then the staff and volunteers can take it from there and match them up with a great dog.
I know it, and we have a wonderful play area now for the dogs outside where you can watch them interact with each other. You can watch them retrieve and play and see how active they're really going to be. And there are plenty of places to walk the dog. Now, sometimes people have another pet at home and they think they want to add to the family. Have you ever done a meet and greet with someone who went home and got their other pet and brought it back?
I haven't, but I know the other volunteers do, and that's where the play yard comes in very handy, because it's a beautiful place for them to interact. And then they can walk around the trails together too, which is great.
Yeah, I'm pleased to see it when that works out. It's kind of a walk by and see how the dogs will interact, because those are things we want to know before the person gets home with a new pet.
Yes.
Yeah, it avoids problems. And I know you work primarily with the dogs, but I've been so impressed with the way our cat volunteer program has changed over the last year and a half. And we separated out the volunteer orientation and training into cats and dogs. We used to have them both together.
Yes.
I don't know if you ever helped out with any of the volunteer training nights, but it's a lot of fun, and have all the dog people together is a wonderful thing, and let one of our dogs loose in the audience, so to speak, to interact. I think it's great camaraderie for them. Our cat volunteers are now following a procedure for socializing with the cats more and providing more stimulation, and they also go outside on their own catio,
Yes.
which a cat patio, which I notice is quite popular in the warmer months.
It certainly is.
Yeah. One of our volunteers, I don't know if you've seen it, but one of our other volunteers went in and built ramps and hiding
Yes.
places. Right. And so one day we were there and we had a cat that was so happy up on the top ramp that we couldn't get it to come down so we could go home. So it's wonderful to see them out of the kennel and involved in a visitation with someone,
Yes.
either on the catio or in the cat visitation room. Now, over the years, over 17 years, I know that you have had many special cases come through your life where you ended up finding a home for an animal. Could you share a story with us about a special rescue? I think you mentioned one to me that you have followed their progress.
Yes. Probably about 11 years ago, we sent this beautiful black flat-coated retriever lab mix named Gucci out to Vermont, and she lived to be 14 years old, and every year we'd get an update from her mom and dad, and pictures and just what she was up to, and she was a very well-loved dog. And one very special lady adopted 2 older dogs from us. These came in, I think it was about a year and a half apart, and it was Fred and Hunter. And Fred at the time was 10, and he went to New Jersey. And about a year and a half later, she said, I'd like to adopt another older dog. So she took Hunter, who was 12. And Hunter lived another 2 years, and she still has Fred. And I just thought that was remarkable to take an older dog like that. And then another one as well. And probably one of our favorite recent stories, we had a chocolate lab named Trey, and he was born with a deformed front leg, and he ended up at this shelter, and there is so much teamwork in the rescue community. He was seen by an orthopedic surgeon and also a canine rehabilitation specialist just to determine the issues with his leg. And happily, they said, as long as he wasn't too active and didn't gain any weight, the leg would be fine. And eventually, he might need a brace. So we reached out to a rescue group in Virginia, and they kept him for a while, and they absolutely loved him. I think they would have been happy if he would have just stayed there forever. And he ended up with a retired couple in Colonial Williamsburg in a one-story house with a huge fenced backyard, and they just dote on him. So that was a perfect place for him to go.
Oh, I'm so glad you get so involved in these dogs' stories, and you're able to share over the years.
Yes.
See why is this all worth it? When all these people have to get involved, and volunteers and donors pay for orthopedic specialists, they pay for rehab, they pay for transports sometimes, special medications, and what is it all? Why do we all do it? And when you get the pictures every year, or you find a sweet soul in Vermont that'll take a 10 and a 12-year-old dog, I think people begin to see why it's worth the effort. Senior dogs present a special challenge, do they not?
Yes, they do.
What is it? Is it a stigma of thinking that I don't want a dog that is not going to live very much longer, or?
I think that's what people think, because it's so emotional when you do lose a dog. But Hunter had 2 of the best years of his life with someone, and that made it all worthwhile. We just recently placed an 11-year-old lab mix with a rescue, and he's bouncing around like a puppy in the videos they're sending us. So
yeah. We sent a dog recently. It's great to get the feedback. There's a senior dog farm, and I can't remember the name of it, but they're actually people who have large properties, and I've just being there the limited time I am in animal control, I've been amazed to find out how many real people like us are just starting little sanctuaries for animals.
Yes.
In different parts of the country, and to be willing to take a 3-legged animal or a blind animal or a 12 or 13-year-old, and like you said, it's sitting in the shelter and people are walking by, oh, it's 12 years old, I don't want one that old. And then you get a picture in 6 months from its new home, and it's bouncing through the creek or chasing the chickens on somebody's farm. That is wonderful. Are you going to, the caninality now, is that something you do every time you come to the shelter, or how much time do you give for our viewers to know? What's your commitment emotionally and time-wise to the shelter?
The caninality, they ask if we could do it on Sunday mornings because they really need the room during the week for so many other things. So I get in at 7 o'clock on Sunday morning so I can get the dogs evaluated, and then the walkers can come in and take them out. And I do most of my work at home, networking with the rescues and working on the Pet Finder site. And it's just a treat to come in and have time to just sit with the dogs and pet them and go see the cats and take some out on the catio. So that's what I enjoy most of all.
But you do both? You interact with both when you're there? Because I thought I'd seen you in the cat room before. So kudos to you. There are not too many crossover volunteers. We all tend to radiate one direction or the other, but I'm seeing more and more people discover that if they have a talent for animals, it's maybe for all animals. And it's great to see volunteers come in there and say, oh, I'm a dog person, and then a year later I see them in the cat room.
I think, Debbie, one of the most gratifying things for me, when I started all those years ago, there were only 2 volunteers, and to see how many dedicated people we have now, and the ones that we keep getting new ones all the time, that has been the best thing for the animals.
Well, they have a great teacher and people like you, and we like to pair them up with experienced people now when they come in to start their volunteerism. We like to pair up all the new people with people like you that can train them and tell them, show them the ropes, so to speak, because we do depend on you. And I think I was told about 1,000 hours a month are given by volunteers at the shelter, and there are about 170 that we consider very active. And there's only 30 days in a month, so you can see how many of those are in there. And we do have volunteer times early in the morning before the shelter's even open, and on holidays and weekends they're still there. So I want to let our viewers rest assured that our volunteers are not just there when we're open. It's been so interesting to talk to you and find out all the things you do. You're a real inspiration.
Thank you, Debbie.
To all of our viewers, I know. And I want to recap a couple of things that are happening this month at the shelter. On Sunday, February 8th, the Williamson County Animal Center will be participating in the Puppy Love Dog Fest at Independence High School. That's from noon to 6 p.m. It is a fundraiser for Independence High School's parent-teacher-student organization. This is second annual Puppy Love Dog Fest. We'll be there with pets for adoption. There are also contests which you can bring your pet from home to participate in. Just look up Puppy Love Dog Fest on Facebook for more information. There is an admission fee of $5 and $2 for students for that afternoon, but it's going to be a lot of fun February 8th on a Sunday afternoon at Independence High School. Then on February 12th, the Harley-Davidson of Cool Springs motorcycle dealership is having an after-hours party that they have had for a couple of years to benefit the shelter. They do a fun bachelor or bachelorette auction, food and music. It's an adult event, and they raise money for the shelter, and we so appreciate them. They also have one of our adoptable pet posters on display in their dealership. And then in the entire month of February, we'll be having the My Furry Valentine promotion at the shelter, in which we will offer $40 adoptions on all adult animals. On Saturday, February 14th, on Valentine's Day, we'll have a little Valentine's Day party at the shelter. We'll have a pooch smooch booth where you can get a kiss from a puppy. We will have no fees that day for the first 14 adoptions. So if you're thinking of adopting, Valentine's Day would be a great time, and the fees have been underwritten by a donor for that day, so we're excited about adopting out at least 14 animals that day. It's our goal on the 14th of February. We'll have some Valentine surprises for you too, so come on by the shelter on the 14th from 11 to 3 for our Valentine's Day party. We'll be closed Monday the 16th for President's Day. If you're thinking of adopting a pet, please don't shop. Please adopt. Come to Williamson County Animal Center. We're located at 106 Claude Yates Drive, just north of Franklin High School, and we're open for adoptions Monday through Friday from 10 to 6 and Saturday from 11 to 3. We also have a free spay-neuter program for the public. To find out if your family qualifies for your family pet to be spayed or neutered to control the pet population, just call the shelter at 790-5590. Stop by to see us or like us on Facebook. That's a great place to find out about our events and what's going on at the shelter. And I hope you watched our puppies in the Puppy Bowl on Super Bowl Sunday. We're awfully proud of their performance. And I want to thank Karen Menzyk again. Karen, you've inspired. I hope we'll get some new volunteers now. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I hope to see you next time on Pet Watch.
If we could talk to the animals, learn all their languages, maybe take an animal degree. If I conferred with our furry friends, man to animal, think of the amazing repartee. If I could walk with the animals, talk with the animals, grunt and squeak and squawk with the animals,